So with this particular video, I wanted to focus more on giving people encouragement. And that's from the standpoint of those in particular who have been in a state for a very long time, to the point to where you've essentially identified yourself with the state. Meaning, let's just say, you've dealt with addiction, I don't know, for 10 plus years or whatever. After being in that state of addiction for 10 plus years, you'll start to associate with yourself with that. That's who you are. I'm an addict and I'm always going to be an addict, so to speak. That doesn't just have to be for addiction. That can be with being a victim, being poor, whatever, just whatever state of mind, state of consciousness you've been in so long that you actually believe that that's who you are. And the reason why I want to make this video is because while I'm currently kind of going through some of the challenges that come with that, I kind of want to give you guys hope, but also just another way to look at it. So I myself have, especially in my younger years, have dealt with some things that basically convinced me to have a very low opinion of myself. Whether that be bullying, some of the things that I went through in my personal life, I crafted this story that pretty much I was absolutely worthless. And I walked through life like that. Pretty much, for as long as I can remember, I've constantly compared myself to people. I've constantly looked at other people as being, better than me. And life, slowly but surely began to reflect that belief back to me. But one thing I noticed as I got older and as I think it was probably about like 8th grade, so let's just say middle school, I started to notice that I began to feel like I mattered a little bit more. But I started to feel like I mattered because people cared about me as the victim. So what do I mean by that? Let's just say, you're a kid that was picked on, that's gone through certain things, and people see you as, kind of like the wounded bird that needs to be cared for, so to speak. In your mind, or at least I'll just say in my mind, if I believed that I was worthless, but I saw that I got a bunch of attention from others believing that I'm broken, I need to be looked after, I need to be healed, I need to be fixed. In my mind, I start to believe, okay, well, I want attention. I want to feel seen. I want to feel like I matter. It seems like people think I matter because I'm not well. So I actually, I referenced this before, and I believe I referenced it in my book as well. I don't know how deep in detail I went, but I'll try to be as detailed as possible in here so you get the point. But I had already dealt with things like depression and low self-esteem naturally just because of the things that I experienced in life. But one thing I noticed as I got older, I feel like I purposely made that my identity. And I think that admitting that out loud might be very uncomfortable for some people because there's a certain level of responsibility that would require us to take if we were honest about that. But you can't fix any of this if you're not willing to be responsible and acknowledge that you created it. So I want to say it was roughly about middle school. That's when I made the decision that okay, I'm going to attach myself to this state of consciousness. Obviously, I didn't make this as a conscious decision as a kid. This is me about to be 30 years old looking back on this. So now I can understand what I was actually doing. And I can, explain it intelligently. But as a kid, I was just like, okay, free attention. People care about me. I need to be sick. I need to be broken. I need to be unhappy. I need to be the absolute worst version of myself because everybody loves and cares about me when I'm broken, not when I'm just me. Because in my mind, I always thought that was the problem. I thought being me was what got me bullied. Being me is what got me ignored. Being me is what got me rejected. So I was like, okay, people like this. So that led to a very, honestly and truly, that led to an identity that I adopted for a very long time. And in my late 20s, I'm really starting to now understand the gravity of the decision that I made at such a young age. But the reason why I'm telling you this story is because I understand that for those like myself, because I'm going through it now, you're faced with the challenge of when you embrace the law of assumption for the first time, when you learn about, Neville, when you learn about consciousness, when you learn about all these different things about how, life and reality works, you are immediately faced with the challenge of you now have to essentially work to undo everything that you had done previously. And what I mean by that is if I have built, so I'm 29 now, so let's just say, so 19, that's 10 years. And then if we want to get cute with it, we will go past 16. So let's just say pretty much over a decade. We'll just say give or take 15 years. If give or take 15 years, I've believed one thing about myself, if I've cultivated habits, thought patterns, and just if I've cultivated a core being wrapped around a single idea, and I have nurtured that for 15 years straight, when I finally get to the point that I realize that I made a mistake and I want to change course, it's not going to be easy. And I think that might be the thing that kind of drives certain people crazy. I can tell you it's definitely done it for me. That might be the thing that drives certain people crazy when they get into the law of assumption, or when they try to start going down this road of, adopting a new state, so to speak. Because now I have to essentially look at the year's worth of practice that I've had in a state that I don't want to be in. And I know, Neville will say that, moving states is effortless. That I do believe. I've seen that from personal experience. I've had meditations where I've literally got up and felt like a new person once I left that meditation. I've had experiences where I know for a fact that I have changed my state. However, Neville also says it's really more about where do you dwell habitually, because you have the freedom to move wherever you want. You have the freedom to access whatever feeling you want, but it's about where do you dwell habitually. And I trained myself to dwell habitually in a state of worthlessness. So to those of you that feel like you're struggling, to those of you that feel like, oh, this is impossible, or, it seems like it made it worse. And I get that. I get that, because there are times where it feels like you kind of kick the hornet's nest trying to deal with this, because it's almost like there's pushback. I don't know if it's the human element of it or what, but it's almost like there's pushback when you make a serious effort to try to leave this stuff behind. But today I want to encourage you to keep climbing. And time is a remedy in this situation. And I get that may sound a bit confusing, because we always try to say, time doesn't exist to the inner man, and it doesn't. But I'm speaking from the standpoint of the outer world, because let's just be honest, we're still human. We're still conscious of time, or at least our perception of time, because the concept of time has been drilled into our heads since we got here. So it doesn't matter how much Neville you study, you're going to be aware of time, because that's just something that was taught to you. So it's okay to still, me personally, and I know there are a lot of different people that teach law of assumption. I try my best to approach the law of assumption with just not necessarily reason, but with a sense of it's still okay to be human. And what I mean by that is when you're learning all this stuff, man, I've said this plenty of times, the law of assumption is not a cure for the human condition. Manifestation is not a cure for the human condition. And I don't know if a lot of these self-help or guru people give the impression that what they have to offer will cure you being human and you won't have to deal with the things that come with being human. But that's a lie. That's actually a part of the plan. Neville said that Jesus is crucified on the cross, and the cross is man. The human body, the human condition, that is the metaphorical cross that Jesus is crucified on. The human experience is that. So you have to bear the cross. You have to experience all of this. It doesn't go away until it's your time to take the body you wear off, as Neville likes to put it. So I think it would kind of give you a little bit more peace of mind if you realize that the law of assumption is more of something to help make the human experience better. But it is not a tool or a cure for the human experience. It's not a tool to make humanness go away or the challenges that come with being human go away. Perfect example. The law of assumption will never get rid of the need for you to feed yourself and drink water. You're going to be a slave to this body until this body is done and you quit it. It doesn't matter how spiritual you are, and it doesn't matter how much you get to the point of, okay, I know I'm the inner man. This body still requires food and water. It still requires sleep. Like that's kind of the point. So I go off on that little tangent just to kind of point out that I just like to approach it by constantly being aware of I am still in a human body. And because I am still in a human body, there are certain experiences and challenges that come with that. And that's okay. It's a part of it. You don't have to try to get rid of that. And I've accepted that because that takes something off of my plate and it gives me one less thing to try to work on. And now I can focus on what really needs my attention, which is the inner me. The outer me, I mean, I'm always going to do what needs to be done to take care of that anyway, but the inner me is what needs the attention. Trying to focus on trying to make everything perfect for the outer me just adds an extra dose of hell that I don't need. But keep climbing. Keep climbing and know that even when it feels hopeless, even when it feels like I have done all this for nothing, even when it feels like you've been working on this for God knows how long and nothing has changed, I have wrestled with myself consistently and seriously since about December. So after my birthday. So let's just say like a little bit after, maybe about December 14th, 15th, somewhere in there. So late December 2023 until now, I have given myself, the real me, the inner me, the type of attention that it is needed, that he is needed since forever. And I have had major victories during that wrestling match. And I have had times where I have gotten punched in the mouth and wondered if I was going to get back up. But I'm not quitting. Number one, because I believe in imagination. I believe in God. I believe in the power of all this. And I think once you see it, it's really hard to go back and pretend like it's not the solution. Because once you're proven to yourself it works, it's almost like you'd be kind of insane to go back the other way when you finally realized, okay, it may be a long road, but at least I'm on the right one. You'd be insane to turn back. So this time that I've been working on the real me, the inner me, it's been a challenge. It's climbing a mountain, but you just climb. And one of the things that Edward Art says that I like is you kind of have to, it's a self-abandonment. You're being there for yourself and abandoning yourself at the same time. You have to allow the old you to die in order to become the new you. In order to be the new you, you have to let the old you die. And I have another way to look at it that I like. And this kind of incorporates how I said, the human element, so to speak. So think about a breakup. Think about, whatever your absolute red flag is, like to the point where if this person did this, you're done. There's no questions about it. Like that's just it. Whether that be verbal abuse, physical abuse, cheating, whatever, right? Look at your relationship with the current state of consciousness that you're in that you don't like as a relationship. Another thing that Edward Art said that I absolutely love is at one point in your life, you fell in love with this version of you. You wouldn't have become this version of you if you didn't fall in love with it. Now, of course, it'll require you to sit down and take some time and, do some soul searching and some digging. It took a lot of therapy for me to kind of figure out why the hell did I fall in love with this version of me? And I know because I felt like this version of me was going to get my needs met. I felt like this version of me was going to get me the love and attention that I felt like I couldn't get being my natural self. So I fell in love with this state because of that. In my mind, this state was the answer to my problems at that time. And as I got older and my life began to, kind of become a sinking ship, so to speak, I slowly but surely started to realize that state, maybe that state was the answer when I was in freaking 8th, 9th, 10th grade, whatever. But the older I got, the more I started to realize this state is not the answer, and nor is it helpful. It's a terrible state. So going back to the relationship metaphor, that person you fell in love with might have been really great at first, but now you're starting to see that there are some things that are just absolutely horrible, abusive, like vile. You know you have to leave. You know you can't stay. It's gotten to that point where it's not even up for negotiation anymore. That's the dynamic that you have with this current state of consciousness that you want to let go of. So what do? You break up. Might be through a text message, might be face-to-face, might be through a letter, but you break up and you let that person know we're done because of X, Y, and Z. This is no longer working for me. I've grown as a person. I got to go. But here's the interesting thing about that. I know every relationship's different, but for the sake of this metaphor, let's just go with this particular situation. When you try to break up with somebody and they just absolutely will not have it, like, even if they're in the wrong, like, they're just like, well, no, I still want to be with you. I'll change, whatever. That's the type of response that you get from the state of consciousness that you are pretty much breaking up with. And what do I mean by that? When you've decided to change states, so I'll use poverty, for example. If you've decided to appropriate for yourself the state of consciousness of wealth, I am wealthy. And that's just it. No reason. You've seen it inside yourself. The phrase that I love to use is, if you can perceive it, you are it. So if you can see yourself in imagination as wealthy, imagination has shown you that that's what you are. So cool. You accept that. You feel it. You go on about your day. But you notice that habitual state is there. So it's kind of like when you break up with somebody, you know how they might still call you, even though, you've moved out of the house, you don't see each other anymore. And it's the same way with this state. You don't see certain things anymore that are from your past, or you don't see certain things that directly identify you with that state. However, it's still there mentally. So just like when you'll break up with a person and go on with your life, they'll still try to call you. They might, ask your friends about you, or send little letters or like flowers to your job or whatever to try to get your attention. That's what the old state of consciousness does when you attempt to basically say, I'm done, I'm moving on. Using my own life example, I'll go with security, because I know insecurity is something that I've dealt with a lot in my life. I'll notice that when I'll embody being secure, I'll notice that there's still the habit of my mind drifting to places that are insecure. So in that same way, what do you normally do when the person that you broke up with, you were firm with it and you said, no, I'm done? They decide to blow up your phone and keep trying to reach out to you, even though you said you're done. You see that they're calling. You know that they're trying to reach out to you. You might even hear them when they leave a voicemail, but you still don't reach back out. You still ignore the long text messages. You might even go as far as to ignore them if you bump in person. They might call your name, try to speak, and you just keep walking the other way because you have decided, I'm done. And at first, it's hard because, there's, like they say, the stages of grief. So look at it like that when you're changing states as well. Like I said, you fell in love with this version of you at some point. At some point, this version of you was useful. Even if it don't seem like it now, there was a point in your life where this version of you loved it and it was useful. Otherwise, you wouldn't have committed to it. So allow yourself to mourn the dead part of you. That's cool too. But at the end of the day, just like you ignore that ex when they try to pop up and, do whatever to get your attention, you have to ignore the old remnants of the old you that are still popping up throughout your mind and your experience as you are now affirming and walking in, no, I've broken up with this person. I am a new person. I am single. I am walking in this new life. This is who I am now. So if I've decided that I want to leave poverty behind, Poverty might still call my phone. Poverty might still show up in the way of, I don't know, me getting bills in the mail that say my bank account balance is, $250. Well, not bills, but a bank statement saying my bank account balance is $250, or I got X amount of credit card debt, because that's a good one, because my grandmother asks me all the time, how am I supposed to believe that I'm debt free if I still get bills in the mail that say I owe debt? It's the same thing with the metaphor of the X. That's an old state of consciousness that's trying to get your attention because it wants you to come back and it wants you to recommit to it, because it knows, just like the X, if you stay gone long enough, that's it. The old state of consciousness will wither and die. Just like there's like a Bible verse that basically where Jesus is saying like anything that's not in the vine, it shrivels, it dies. So it's like the same thing with a state of consciousness. The longer that you stay away from it, the longer that you are not feeding it yourself, because you are life and you give state of consciousness life, it is going to shrivel up and die, but it is not going to go down without a fight. So ignore the old state of consciousness that you no longer want. Ignore it like your ex. Yeah, you might get a text message. Yeah, you might get a phone call. You don't have to pretend like it's not there. That's cool. But when it's there, remind yourself subtly, that's my ex. We're done. I told him, her, we're done. And that's the end of it. And when you assume that, when you just say we're done and you go on with your life and you continue to walk in that, just like you have to go through the stages of grief, just like as time goes by, you go from crying over your ex to eventually that breath of relief and fresh air finally kicks in. But it takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes persistence and not going back. So if I have to say anything to you today, I want you to just do not give up hope. Do not get let down when you open your eyes and you see that your life still looks like the exact same that it did yesterday. Look at it like the relationship. You're just dealing with a breakup right now. And there are just weird things that you have to go through when you're dealing with a breakup. However, you're still broken up. You're still broken up, and you are moving to, you're living the new life now. Because the moment you break up with that person, you're living that new life. It's just the old life tries to keep coming back and whispering to you. So I hope that helps, because I understand more than you know how hard it is to wrestle with yourself when you've done such a very good job of creating hell for yourself. When you've done a very good job at misusing imagination, sometimes it feels like you put yourself in a spot where there's no way in hell I can get myself out of this. But I promise you, you can. And every little victory that you experience is proof that if you just keep at it, you will get to where you want to go. So just keep ignoring your ex and just keep walking.